It's the evening of April 21st, and I thought I'd take a walk down to our living wall along the road and show you an update before things really wake up. One quick side note is this exquisite beauty of a being, the Nanking cherry. There's 3 of them in here. They can really stand being close to each other, and they're just coming into peak flower. My gosh, what a sight. Anyway, let's look at the roadway here. Now, in some ways, it's not that exciting to look at it at this time of year because it's super bare, but it's an opportunity to look at the skeleton and the framework of the whole system and talk about what we can hope to expect for this year. As with all these videos, please be patient with the fact that it's loud road. That's part of the reason why we have this all. The first thing that's pretty major is on the west side of the road. You'll notice that I went through, hold on, some sweet tunes in that ride. Went through and pollarded these curly willows second time, so it's each year now I'm pollarding them at around 5 to 6 feet high. This will become very readily apparent in another month when they leaf out and the absolute dominant amount of foliage and stem will be in this band, which is basically the view shed from our home out to the road and from cars looking inward. If I didn't prune them at all, they'd be continually going onward and upward and providing a tremendous amount of visual barrier up here, which is not useful for us. So that pruning is very stimulating to them. It seems a little harsh if you don't do this as a practice, but if I go in close, you can see they're setting up shop with some absolute serious buds all throughout, getting ready to pop. And in another few weeks I'll do an update and you'll see how well that's really working. One of the benefits of taking a wander this early in the season is it gives an opportunity to see the perennial herbaceous cast of characters, since they tend to pop a lot earlier than the woody plants. And so, for example, I see some really serious tufts of our champion of the decompaction and soil holding layer, which is our Turkish rocket allies. We've got Sweet Sicily carpets coming up. They're starting to truly naturalize in here. They can handle the partial shade and the moisture quite nicely. And so right now, Sweet Sicily and Turkish rocket are thoroughly occupying this understory, as well as rhubarb. And this is under the just slightly budding elder and blue false indigo bush. There's also lovage and valerian. As we get a little further down into the wet, they can handle wetness a lot better. At some point I should do a thorough inventory of who all is in here. It's pretty obscenely packed. But yeah, the elders are starting to wake up early. We'll keep them pruned as needed, but for now I'd like to give them a pop and let them move up into the canopy a bit. And just to the south you can see the hazel is just beginning to leaf out. Most of the nut family plants seem to leaf out a lot later than the other shrubs and trees. Some other real winners here right along the road. Iris, oh my gosh, how did you do it? 2 feet from the road edge with many days just being inundated with salt and BS from the roads. And not only did they survive that, but it looks like their populations have expanded dramatically. The comfrey crowns, you can see them popping up all throughout. We very intentionally harvested a tremendous amount of crowns and roots from this area with the distinct intention of having them expand quite a bit this year. One real depressing element, but maybe I can consider it inspiration to design further, is you can see it's pretty bare and wet in here. 2 nights ago we had a very intense short pulse of rain, 1.5 inches or so within a few hours, and all of the drainage ways flooded and poured over this space and kind of blew this area out. I would argue that the main driver for that is this sort of context, which is unending tightly mowed lawns and huge driveways, massive homes and roofs, I think people driving by and seeing our space might think, oh, it's people like these folks, like us, that are the reason for why these drainage ditches flood, because they have all these plants and debris. But actually our space are what hold the soil together. And so this last pulse event blew out a tremendous amount of soil and really hurt this area because it's early in the spring. But it's good inspiration for us to get more powerful perennial herbaceous plants. Iris in particular, I think, is going to be a real winner to pack in for silt catches throughout here. So there's more work to be done. One nice surprise though is with all that blown out silt that moved through, there's a huge pile of brassicas in here. I believe these are all red Russian kale. I put a lot of seed heads in the fall. So we're going to let that be and maybe gently sift some compost and mulch over this as the season moves on. And maybe kale will end up being the baleen whale of filtering silt for our ditch before it enters the common waterways and ultimately lands in the huge freshwater lakes near us. On the east side of the driveway you can see the woven Miscanthus wall, which provided just a wonderful windbreak, visual barrier, shelter, protection. I can't say enough about how much we appreciate Miscanthus in its living state and also its winter skeletal state. It's going to be another month or two before the new growth emerges and provides just a really powerful level of additional visual barrier. You can see the rings of the future tufts of Miscanthus that'll come up, but their skeletons did really wonderful work for our winter, and even now in keeping, like, you can't even tell that there's a chicken yard in there, and yet there is. We've added in some additional layers, which we'll talk about more as they leaf out. There's some variegated Japanese willows in here now. There's some more nut trees, but overall it's the skeleton of the Miscanthus that is the winner for the eastern side for the winter. So we'll leave it there for now. Certainly dormant state by and large, with the herbaceous perennials starting to really show who they are, and the main framework of this space shaped, sculpted, and pruned to be ready for a very intense growth season. And we'll share notes in the weeks to come as things leaf out. I would suspect this will be the year that by July or so, you would be very hard pressed to see into our yard at all from the amount of vegetation that'll leaf out. Maybe to your eye that seems like an outlandish claim now, but we'll check in a few months and maybe I'll be right. We'll see. Thanks for watching.